Okay, great. Thanks, Nolan. Okay, hi, everybody. Welcome. I'm Michael Mikowski. I'm the president and CEO at JINSA. I'm very pleased today uh, to to welcome Congressman Max Miller of Ohio to join us to discuss the results of the recent elections and how President Trump and to discuss how President Trump is likely to approach the Middle East in his second term. Uh, Congressman Miller hails from Northeast Ohio. He graduated from Cleveland State University and served 6 years in the Marine Corps Reserves. We very much appreciate his service. He joined President Trump's campaign in early 2016, worked in a variety of roles in the White House, up and including a role as a senior advisor to President Trump. He was first elected to Congress in 2020, and he represents Ohio's 7th Congressional District. He currently serves on the Agricultural and Science and Space and Technology Committees, and he's also one of 12 members of the House Knesset Parliamentary Friendship Group, which was created during Speaker McCarthy's trip to Israel in 2023. It's the first official forum between the two nations' legislative bodies. Congressman, thank you very much. It's terrific to welcome you, to have you join us.
Thank you for having me, and I look forward to the discussion and questions that are going to come my way. But it is an honor to spend this amount of time with you, and thank you for the invitation to be with all of you here today.
I tell you, you've done a lot. You're a young guy. You've done a lot already in your few years, I would say.
Don't worry, I've already started buying hair supplements to make sure it stays this way, and
Okay.
that have gotten a little worse in 2 years, shockingly. So.
All right. Well, also, I want to congratulate you on your recent reelection, and also, if I didn't mention it, it's important, I think, especially for many in our audience, that you're only one of two Republican Jewish members in Congress right now. Is that correct?
That is correct, which blows my mind still to this day. But yes, it's a very sad stat that we have.
We look forward to at least having 8 more, so you could have what we call a minion of Republican Jewish members.
We're close. We got one more, I believe, Jewish member out of Texas who just won, Craig Goldman, I believe, who's new. I've gotten to speak with him, and he's a great guy. So,
all right, well, that's terrific. Obviously, there are more Jewish members on the Democratic side, and they have more than a minion, obviously, on that, but it'd be good to have more also on the Republican side. Let me ask you, let's just start based on that issue. How is as one of only 2 Republican Jewish members of the Congress, how is the war between Israel and Hamas? Well, I should say that this war that is obviously really against the Iranian axis that started on October 7th with of last year with the Hamas's barbaric attack on Israel. How has that affected you personally and professionally, if I could ask?
Well, personally, it affects me greatly because those are our people. Those are the Jewish people who were massacred on one of the biggest attacks since the Holocaust. And I was scared, just like every other Jewish American and probably Jew around the entire world. And I was incredibly sad. I was scared. I wanted to know more of what happened. And once, we were able to figure out what happened and pick up the pieces, then Israel does what Israel does best. And Jewish people do what Jewish people do best, and that is stick together. And Israel, got a game plan, and they've enacted it, and they've been carrying it on, in my opinion, better than any other military in the world, because no other military, to be clear, including ours, and I'm saying this as a United States Marine, has ever had to engage in warfare where the enemy would bury themselves with young women and children, whether it's in places of worship or schools or hospitals. And that is warfare that has really never been conducted And the one factual stat that truly never gets out about this war is that there have been more children born in Gaza since October 7th than ones who have perished from this earth. And so Israel is doing the very best job that they possibly can to protect themselves from a horrific day that never should have had happened. But everything that's moving forward, I believe they're conducting it in a very effective, responsible manner, and they're doing the best job that they can.
When was the last time, if you don't, when was the last time you were in Israel, by the way, and saw the
So I got to go twice in this capacity. I got to go once with Speaker McCarthy for the Knesset friendship, which you brought up. Thank you. And then I got to go there about 2.5 weeks to 3 weeks after October 7th. Actually, my daughter was born on November 4th. And I went right after. So I went, yeah, I was there right after. So about 4 weeks after I was there, we met with Prime Minister Netanyahu. We met with Defense Minister Gallant. And he brought us into this room in Tel Aviv in the Defense Ministry, and he made us watch the video. And it's not the video that people have seen. And I've never seen anything. I've seen things in my life. I've been in the Marine Corps. I was even in Ukraine. I unfortunately saw a mass pit of young women and children, but emotionally, these are our people, and it destroyed me that people can treat others in this way. And I really don't want to get into the details, but everything you've heard is true. And right after that video, I was in tears, and I'm not afraid to say that at all. I was incredibly sad and hurt and angry. And the Prime Minister came up to me and at the end of the meeting, and he just said, "You don't need to worry." And I said, "I'm not worried, but I'm sick and tired of the Jewish people being treated so inhumanely, nonstop." And then further he went through his plan about how he was going to conduct his war. And I will tell you, from that day, which was, when it happened on that October 7th last year, everything he said he was going to do, he has done. And he has done it in a very effective manner and has not deviated from the plan that he told us as members of Congress. And that makes me happy, because they are literally chipping away and not only saving their own country, but they're saving the greater world from terrorism that can easily come over here, that is infecting the entire world.
Yeah. By the way, have you been just focusing on the war a little more, and then I'll want to come back to domestics, what's going on here in the U.S. But how do you, having been there then, and then the war took longer than I'm sure that the Gallant and then Netanyahu communicated to you then. I know it did when I've been there. They thought it was going to be over in a few months. It's obviously a major operation in Gaza, pretty much maybe only over now. And then for them to turn this around, what they've done against Hezbollah in recent months, I guess it's been really how have you seen this, especially as a vet? I mean, how Israel really kind of turned things around, would you say, on the Iranians and their proxies?
Yeah. Bibi said this to us in that meeting that I had brought up. And I fundamentally, unfortunately, believe this to be true. And we've seen it in our country as well. And he didn't say any words. He said, "Some people only understand one thing." And he went like this.
Yeah.
And sadly, what I'm even seeing across the globe, and what I'm seeing even here in our own country is, and this is incredibly sad, that people don't react or they do not care unless they are personally affected by anti-Semitism or racism or real hate or an attack on them that's physical or emotional, what have you. And then they decide to care. And so that is the world, unfortunately, that we are living in, where decorum of treating another human just with an equal dignity of respect has been lost, not only within our country, but across the world. So it's incredibly challenging on that front.
Yeah. Let me ask you one thing. A colleague of mine, Blaise Mishtal, and I, we had an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal the other day about the withholding of weapons that the Biden administration has been, conducting for many months, and that it's not just the 2,000-pound bombs, but it's actually 500-pound bombs, these JDAMs, These are as you know, of course, but I'm just explaining for everyone else, these kits that are put on so-called dumb bombs and making them very precise. There's a whole range of things that have been withheld. And, one of the things that's been interesting is that, we argued it was done for a couple of reasons. The withholding and it's widely thought this way too, because the Democrats, first Biden and then Harris, they wanted to win Michigan. And in the end, not only did they lose Michigan, but they lost Dearborn, Michigan. And I'm just curious how you see from your perch in Ohio and elsewhere, how did this war affect? Do you think it affected the elections?
To a certain extent, yes, and to a certain extent, no. I mean, I represent the largest Ukrainian population by any one Republican in Congress.
Mm.
I'm proud and honored to support Ukraine, and I did vote for it. You know, I believe what the Democrats were doing, engaging in being more on the other side, and in my opinion, the wrong side, which was delaying weapons to Israel, not being as supportive as this country has traditionally always have been of Israel, is that this was a political messaging ploy, that they made a calculated decision that if they could withhold some of the weapons for Israel to play to a very small part of their electorate, that was going to put them over the edge in Dearborn, Michigan, and in other places throughout the country. And what we had found is that at the end of the day, in this last election, while some more of our people, Jewish people, voted Republican, in my opinion, not enough from what we've seen over the last 3.5 years, that the foreign wars, believe it or not, did not, in my opinion, really play a huge factor in this election. What I saw on a couple of weeks ago on Tuesday from the exit polling is that any of the top issues were all about the economy, border, nothing social or moral. I mean, overseas to a certain extent, but it wasn't one of the top 5 issues that Americans are thinking about right now. And when we talk about foreign aid, it becomes incredibly hyperbolic, and it shouldn't, because all foreign aid, whatever we give to Israel, Taiwan, Ukraine, and other foreign countries, only makes up 1% of the entire federal budget. And that is not the driver that is causing the national debt. And so when we were able to look at the exit polling and a lot of what the Americans went to the polls in mind about, the top issues were safety within our own country. So crime was really high, inflation, the economy, and the southern border. I mean, a lot of, and I don't mean to go off on social and moral issues and tangents, but even I got wrapped up in some of the media narrative about other things, about social and moral issues that were going to be the #1 driver of this election, and then we found out they weren't even a top 10 issue. But so overall, I don't think it had a massive effect on the election. But what I would like to see more of, because of the lack of support for Israel over these 3.5 years and withholding weapons and not allowing them to engage in the fight, as they do pretty much everybody else at this point, it's blatant anti-Semitism, in my opinion. It's nothing more than that. Israel got attacked and lost 1,300 people in one of the most horrific terrorist attacks that this world has ever seen. I mean, I don't want to get into details, but for them to hold weapons back from the greatest ally that we supported as the first country in 1948 to do what we're doing now, I have a hard time believing this is really about policy and not appealing to an anti-Semitic electorate that they thought could push them over the edge in some specific states.
What do you, and I know this is I'm asking you a question on the Senate side. I know you're in the House, but obviously we just saw this vote here, led by Bernie Sanders, and I think what it was, 18 or 19 Democrats, 18, yeah, supported it altogether, which obviously was rejected about withholding aid to Israel. There was a number of, I was a little surprised, a number of these senators, one with several of them seemed pretty mainstream, actually, to me, one would have thought. But as you know, Mike Herzog, the Israeli ambassador, said, and anyone who votes to withhold aid to Israel now at its time of war like this is not pro-Israel. And I don't know. I'm just curious what you make of this vote. Even though it overwhelmingly lost, but still, that's a lot of senators. Yeah.
It is. I mean, the way that I frame it to people is, and you framed it the correct way, that 18 opposed it. We have 100 senators, so more than 75% of where we are support Israel, and that's where the country is, by the way. I mean, if we look at the country as a whole, it's about 80% of the entire country supports Israel, and that's the way that I frame it, right? We still will have 20% that will never accept that Israel's a state, and they'll probably think it's X, Y, and Z, and that's fine. It's not fine, but they'll always harbor those thoughts. That's what they actually believe. But at the core of it, the vast majority of this country still supports Israel. We still support Ukraine, and we still support Taiwan. We support all of our allies. And so does the majority of our country. I would argue that there's more of an issue here in Congress with legislators about foreign aid than there is back home with our constituents. I mean, I represent an R+7 district. I just, took a vote proudly to support Israel, Ukraine, and Taiwan. And even for the humanitarian effort, which I'll leave that there. All that being said, I went and I did a town hall, my most conservative, place in my district in Wayne County, and the constituents stood up and thanked me for doing the right thing. And that's what I mean about, I think there's more contention amongst legislators about foreign aid than there's amongst our constituents. The American people truly do know, they're not dummies. They know that when we are strong and our allies are strong, that the world is a more stable place. And so, that is the real rhetoric that I hear when I'm back home in my district. So I'm just very grateful for that aspect. I just wonder if it's like that throughout the country in other people's districts.
Let me actually shift a little on you. Look, you worked with President Trump. You're close with him, or President-elect Trump, excuse me, I guess now he's come in, and I obviously many of our audience obviously do care very much on the Ukraine issue, but I'm going to just stick to the Middle East. How do you think he's going to come in? I think one of the big foreign policy issues that he's going to have to deal with, obviously, the Ukraine issue is one of them, but is a nuclear Iran, and Iran's getting very close with its nuclear program. There's certainly, you could tell they're nervous about Trump coming in. In the last 4 years, I think have been pretty good for them. I thought about the Iranians, and the hell, they tried to assassinate Trump, and that tells you something how they think about him, and I'm imagining he hasn't forgotten that fact. So most people would take that personally. How do you think he's going to come in and think about address the Iran issue on this? Yeah.
Strategically, what I do know, what I believe is going to end up happening is that the Saudis are going to jump onto the Abraham Accords when President Trump is in office. And what that's going to do is it's going to stabilize the region completely. Now, we have to work out, but the Israel and the Saudis and the rest of the countries on the Abraham Accords, Morocco and a few more, are going to have to work out the joint policing effort of the area. Israel should do whatever Israel thinks is best for Israel. But from my understanding, I have been told that Israel does not want joint policing in Gaza or whatever happens later on in the West Bank or in our settlements that are in northern Israel, close to Lebanon and so forth. We get the Saudis on board, it completely puts the Arab nations in check, and they already are somewhat in check, as you saw when Iran sent all those missiles over to Israel. The Arab nations turned their back. And then as soon as President Trump was president-elect, even the Houthis came out with a statement and said, "Oh, no, that was by accident. We didn't mean it. We were just screwing around." So that's one of the aspects that will do it. But what President Trump's strategy is going to be with Iran is going to be the same when he was in office, which is suffocating sanctions and no more money. That money is being used to kill Israelis. It's being used to kill Christians. It's being used to kill Muslims all over the world, especially primarily in the Middle East. So once we suffocate them and they have no more money to run their nuclear program or to enable the Iranian proxy groups like Hezbollah and Hamas and others that are underneath their umbrella, they're going to pay a very steep price. And if anyone does work or business with Iran, like that was in place when President Trump was here, they're also going to pay the price for that. And so I imagine a world where Iran is going to be incredibly and unfortunately for their people who want freedom, they're going to be incredibly strife with money. They're gonna be struggling for a bit. They're not gonna have any of the resources that they're going to import because we're not gonna do business with any of the countries that do business with Iran. And we're gonna make it that clear. And so I believe that Iran is gonna be put in a corner, but we need to make sure that we dismantle their nuclear program at some point. We cannot allow, if we have President Trump now in this administration, I'm not willing to take a bet, that another Republican is going to win in 4 years and that, a Democrat want to get back in the JCPOA to give Iran the money so they can finish their nuclear program. I would rather do it now, right? And I want to make sure that they can't ever get a nuclear weapon. And my hope is that President Trump strategically works that out through primarily negotiations, number one. And if he can't, I would argue and advocate to let Israel finish the job in the upcoming months. So when he gets in, we can get the Saudis up to join the Abraham Accords and then destabilize everything. So there's a couple of different options, but I feel very confident that we're going to be in a much safer Middle East.
Yeah. Look, one of the things that's been notable already, you've had at least 2 or 3 phone calls between Prime Minister Netanyahu and President-elect Trump. You had Ron Dermer, who I should note was a in between stints as ambassador and minister, as a distinguished fellow here with us at JINSA. But he was in Washington. He was in America. He was in Washington, but he was also in Florida. He met already, for like a couple hours with President Trump. Seems like those old ties have really kind of quickly kind of rebuilt themselves as soon as the election. And you think that on your last point on the nuclear thing, that as you said, there's a window of opportunity, it seems like, here with the Iranians, especially after the last Israeli strike that seemed to take out their S-300s and other key air defense things. You think President Trump will be supportive of Israel in its efforts if it does seek to try to take out its Iran nuclear facilities?
I do. I fundamentally believe that President Trump has Israel's back through and through, and will continue to support Israel as he did when he was president for 4 years. And there's many things I love about him, but he's not afraid to do the right thing. And we have to remember that we were promised since Bill Clinton that the embassy was going to be in Jerusalem. And every year or every few years, we would have to pass a waiver in Congress. Now, I wasn't here for it, okay? I know it looks like I just graduated from high school, but I'm 36. So 18 years ago. But I will tell you that it took a lot of chutzpah for him to move that embassy. And he did it. And you want to know what happened? Nothing. Because everyone said that there was going to be a third intifada and that everything was going to fall off. And you want to know, in my opinion, why not? Because he had the confidence to do it. And he said, I support Israel and no one is going to screw with Israel. And that is what the president of the United States had always been there for that country. I mean, we always had a president to say that. It's only been really since Barack Obama that we've seen negative rhetoric towards Israel to some extent. So, and it's unfortunately only picked up steam.
Well, look, I'm told that you had a hard stop at 1:30 here Eastern time. I want to. I think it's a great note to end on. I want to thank you very much. First of all, I want to thank you again for your military service. I appreciate your that your I appreciate your activities here and on behalf of Israel and a strong America in Congress, and I appreciate your time with us, Congressman. So
Thank you. If I could just say it's
please.
it's a really big honor for me to be in this capacity and to be Jewish. And it's an honor. My dad always raised my brother and I, no matter what he said, you guys are going to be tough Jews. And I didn't really understand what he was doing at the time, right? You need to be tough. And I never thought that I would go through my life and see something like October 7th. And it clicked to me in the way that my dad and my mother raised my brother and I was to stand up for Jewish people no matter what. Doesn't matter if you're Democrat, Republican, Independent, if there's a Jewish person in need, whether it's monetary, physical help, or whatever, you're always there. And that is why we as a people have always survived. And there has been no greater honor for me in Congress than to stand up for our people who have been walked on and walked over and consistently used as scapegoats since we've been here on this earth since day one. And so I will always continue to fight for the state of Israel, for the Jewish people. And you can always count on me to walk with you hand in hand and to stick it to people who want to give us harm. And so just know you have somebody who's never going to back down from any fight when it comes to the Jewish people or the state of Israel. I'm your guy. And if I can help you, let me know.
Well, thank you very much. That's a terrific sentiment. I really appreciate it. And it's been great speaking with you. And I know I appreciate everyone who joined us today. I'm sure they feel the same way. So thank you very much, Congressman.
Thank you. And I'm Yisrael Chai.
Amen. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.